played for a long time. So being able to lead the top, being able to do all of that damage as he's been doing in these late games, while still also leading, doing a lot of that hard work as well at the front side of top is so impressive for Mr. Savage. And I think this is something that I certainly was quite surprised at how well this duo are performing, because I just wasn't expecting this from them at all.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually wouldn't say I was surprised by it.
Okay.
Just because I think when I looked last year, before Mr. Savage started playing with Mongrel, he was playing a bit with a couple of different people, but Pink in particular, right? They won that DreamHack event, and Mr. Savage just looked unbelievable. I remember watching him and thinking, oh my goodness, like he's reaching a whole new level. And you have to remember, Minnie, this is a player that's been in comp longer than anybody. He's been in since day one. So the fact that we're 4 or 5 years in and we're going, I think he's hitting another peak. Like it does speak to his greatness. And yeah, I have to say, when I'm watching him play with Mongrel, again, big respects to Mongrel. I don't want the Mongrel army coming after me, but Mr. Savage is a one-man army. He is unreal.
Yeah, okay, Mustache, Mr. Savage. I mean, I'm sure everyone at home is wondering why neither of you have chosen Veno as well. I mean, Veno has got to be part of this conversation. It's got to be here. 11, this is a player that we have just championed time and time again. And definitely one we're watching out for in this competition as well.
Yeah, I think the reality is probably a bunch of people probably thought, how did none of them pick Veno? The truth is, I didn't pick Veno just because I just want to be a bit different, to be honest. I wanted to spice it up a little bit, to be real with you, Minnie. But Veno would, I think, be the obvious choice for most people.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just look at the statistics here. 32 eliminations out of the total 41 that those guys had last week. They didn't even have the best start to the day, right? We often talk about Veno being on top of his game, and they didn't actually have that great of a start last week, but how they finished was absolutely incredible. It showed a little bit of a taste as to what we're going to expect from this duo, because, of course, Veno on his own, when paired up with anyone, even Levin 2K, he's going to pop off.
Absolutely, man. This guy is an animal. I think it just says so much that his stats look so impressive. And they came like 66th last week. They weren't even in the top 50. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So this is clearly a player that is, in my opinion, the best player in the world right now. I think you ask most people who's the best player in the world right now, most of them would say Veno. His snipes this season have been on a whole nother level. They've been Thomas HD-like when it comes to the snipers. Him and Taysom, the chemistry maybe hasn't been quite there. They're still, going through the paces. But Veno is undoubtedly one of the best teammates you could have in any era of Fortnite ever.
Yeah, I think it's a great point to make here. I mean, we must talk about other teams here as well. Part of our team as well, of course, we have ourselves Takata and Jacob, the casters of this fine show as well here. We're going to talk to those guys very shortly, but I know they'll be kind of wanting to champion as well, a team that we have to talk about, which is Thomas HD and Queasy. I mean, what do you think about this, Len? What do you think about this duo as well here? What is so special about these two, and why should they absolutely be on everybody's radar today as well?
Well, I really wanted to talk about Thomas and Queasy, Adam, because last week we saw them play, pretty well, right? They came 15th, but they were playing a lot of low ground, Mini. And I think a lot of people were sort of looking at it thinking, hold on a minute, this isn't the norm for Queasy and Thomas. Historically, Queasy is that high ground player. He's the guy where any end game you look up, you're expecting to see Queasy. But I think the key thing here is that, why? Why is Thomas and Queasy now deciding we're not going to play as much high ground as you'd maybe expect? Why are they so insistent on maybe not playing that way? And I think the answer is two things. Two things, Minnie. First one, have you watched Thomas HD with the mythic shotgun in hand? Yep. This guy is ridiculous. And I think when I've asked Queasy about it, he said, yeah, man, when Thomas has that shotgun, I just want to mid and low ground fragging out as much as possible. And I think the second biggest thing for them when sort of looking at it, and Queasy hasn't explicitly said this to me himself, but this season there's so many different ways you can take height. It can get quite messy up there, right? It's not easy to hold height from first moving like Queasy used to do back in the day, right? You have so many problems and so many things you have to be aware of and looking out for.
Yeah, I mean, we must talk about low ground to high ground as well on this team and the versatility here, Minnie, because there is so much that they can do in any given situation. They find a way.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is a duo that can perform on high ground, of course. We've seen Queasy performing there before, and of course low ground, as Levin just briefly broke down. They're doing 89% of their damage in late game from that low ground section, but this is Queasy we're talking about, right? They're still going to be looking to try and play that high ground. They're still going to be in that position to try and play that because they're in those sort of areas to take high ground. As you mentioned, Levin, there's so many different ways that people can take high ground this season and so many different ways that people can look up at high that there's always that opportunity. There's always that small inkling in the back of Queasy's mind that he has to just look out for. Maybe this is a
Hey,
potential high ground take, maybe this
I'm
isn't.
watching
But with
on
the way they're playing on
YouTube
low
the
ground right now, it seems
FNCN's,
like they just got so many tools
so
in
I
their
don't know, the
toolbox,
link
so
should
many
be
sort of
in my
strings to their bow that they can just pull on
Take
at
holiday,
any moment they like.
and a link
And they're
should
just such a
be
well-rounded
in
team, which is quite contrary to what we've seen from Queasy in the past, right?
my
I think it's been a
channel.
little bit of a
So
detriment to some
so
of his
if you
performances
tune in,
sometimes, is that he
yeah,
almost
if you
has
tune
this
in
ego about height
FCFN, it's in
sometimes.
Europe
Back
and
in the
also
day, I want to
stream.
be on
I'm
height.
not
I
able
am the
to
high
stream
ground
on
king
the
of the EU.
same
He seems to have
platform
lost
the
that now
same
with
time.
Thomas, which is
So
really, really good for this
yeah.
duo, in my opinion, because they can just now play whenever they want, wherever they want. And with the experience of both of these guys, you can see the performances. It's doing
First
so
time I
well
do
so far.
this live.
Yeah, I think what we're
If
seeing
this
in
go
EU
good, I
is
will do
a
this more
very
often.
stark
I should have
evolving
cards.
of
So
play
you guys
style and
don't
strategy
hear and
amongst the
see
top players.
the
Back in the day in EU,
NFCNs.
you look
Correct.
at a lobby and there is going to be a couple teams where you go, this is the high
Okay.
ground team. Now, that's not the case,
Hey,
right? And I think
Arlene.
what we're
Hi,
seeing from a lot of the
Sabato.
top
Hi,
teams is
Bensley.
people play high
Guys, I'm
ground
watching
when
on
it is most
YouTube.
suitable
In the
to them.
meantime,
There isn't that
the
mentality of, we're just
NFC
going
and
to
the
play high
Major
ground because
2,
that's what we do as
it's
a team,
fun.
right? It's looking
I
for
hope
those
to
right
learn a lot. I do
opportunities, the
know build. I
combination
do
of the
know
right
build.
zones, the right setup,
Guys,
the
let
right
me know in
loot,
the comments
and then
if
we
you
look to play
like
high.
NFCNs.
Yeah, and that's what we're
They
seeing. We're
build or
seeing
no
them play
build?
that high ground more so than not. So it's
Guys,
like
hey, Dreamy
this, or
Dingo.
that low ground as well as that
If
high
you want
ground,
to
right?
watch
So we're
my
seeing the
stream, what I'm
transition from
watching,
that low
you
ground
can
to high ground
jump over
in a
to
lot of their
YouTube
games.
as
As you
well.
mentioned there, Adam, or as you mentioned there,
I've got
Levin, I
the
should say,
YouTube stream on as
you
well.
broke it down beautifully. These guys can obviously go for the high ground as well. They're not just one of those players that, or one of
Hey,
those
Bobby.
teams that are just focused on that low
Bobby,
to
1,
mid
2,
ground.
3,
Now they haven't
4.
completely dropped the high ground. We
Hey,
can see
Ba.
it here
Hi,
from this
Ba.
game
Hey,
last week.
Ba.
It was one of those
Can I
where
get
there was
fast
an opportunity.
numbers?
The door was
my
wide open.
letters
Players
are,
can, leave the high ground open, particularly at these sort of
will
start
find
moving
us.
zones. And Queasy saw this opportunity
Don't
with the
forget
experience
to
on high ground.
in the
It's just a
chat.
simple height take here, using that building
Do
as
I see the
elevation
chat?
and then
Do I see
continuing
the
that
chat?
elevation with their builds. And from here on out, Levin, it's just typical Queasy up on high as we're used to. But again, he's had that experience on low this season. He's been able to apply more strategy to his game around the rest of things and not just have it on high ground. So
Why,
he can
Mama?
just pull back on the knowledge that he had from high ground before and just use that to his advantage here.
Yeah, so I think the TLDR really is
Thanks for
Queasy and
jumping in.
Thomas. You're going to
Thank you
see
for
them on
the
low
like.
run a bit more than you used to, but they can still dominate height when necessary. That has not been lost from the
I
Arsenal.
see people jumping in and out.
Yeah, they are ones to absolutely watch out for. I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever here. We are so close as well to our
Get
action.
some
We're going to dive
food
right in
joining
now
in this
to
chat.
Jakarta and to Jacobs. Take it
People
away as we
watching,
begin
so hi
week
for
2 in
watching.
style.
Thank you so much,
So,
Adam. Look, we're back in
I'm
business,
watching the
Jacob.
FCN,
Chapter 5, Major 1, the
on
second
my
qualifier,
other
the last
stream.
chance to qualify to
You know, I
those
should
semifinals.
see,
A
can I
quick
turn my
refresh on the
camera?
format. There are 5 matches being played out at the same time, 250 duos, so it's not that one set lobby that we're used to, and it's just non-stop
Dreamy
action,
Dingo, I
Jacob.
still have to
Yeah,
do
so when
your
you're looking
profile
at
pic.
today and
Don't
how
forget
you're
to send
preparing for
me
moments like this,
what you would
you
like
don't
to have.
necessarily have
And,
to get first. Of course, if you're low on series points, you might, but you just need to get into that top 50 in terms of series points. Get to the upper
who do
bracket
we
side of things
have
and
in
make your
FCFN,
life and your FNCS journey that much
players,
easier along the
leaderboard?
way.
We don't
Once
have
you
a
get towards the
leaderboard yet.
semis, that's when placement towards the top side of
We
the
do
leaderboard
see
really
in the
counts to keep
stream
yourself
who
in the
is
upper bracket.
So chronic
Keep yourself
ritual.
going. But look, while the players are getting ready for their
joining.
competition, we talked about it a bit with Levin, many Adam. Who would
Yeah, but
your
the dingo
duo be,
is
Jacob? If
an
you had to pick one
animal,
player
and I
here,
don't
who
want
would
to
you want to
give
be duoing
you
with?
I'm
dingo
the type
ears
of
and
guy
a
where I
dingo
like to
nose.
electrify. I like to excite. I like to put on an
Hi, Queen,
entertaining show.
Vera.
And I feel like there's one player that kind of suits that type of thing for
You
me,
know what
and
I
that's going to
mean?
be Venno. And I feel like if there's anybody going to be able to
Send me
carry
on
someone like me,
Facebook,
it is going to be
whatever,
him.
at the
Last week, he was the
today.
leader in terms of individual eliminations with 32
Her profile
whopping
picture. So she
eliminations
wanted
throughout the
curly.
course of round number 4. So
Hi,
I want to see
Romelu.
more of that through
So
him, not only
she-
this week, throughout the continued of the FNCS, because I do agree he's a little quiet, he's a little under the radar, which is surprisingly with the
We have
32 eliminations, but we
check
know
them
what he's
on-
capable of, and
I
I just
need
want to
to-
see him shine
I
bright.
need an extra
I like
screen.
that pick. I like that pick, Venno. If I had to think myself, I don't know.
Have
Venno's a
GGs,
good
hold
pick,
on,
but I think I'd have to go with Thomas
GGs.
HD. I mean, being an IGL myself
Next
from when I
to me.
competed before, I even saw Queasy
Rama.
post on socials the other day. He's like, I forgot that my teammate is the Thomas HD, but you heard it. The bus is ready. The players are warmed up, so let's get right in to the show.
All right, guys. First game gonna start.
This might just be
Hey,
game one
Marlon.
of week 2, but this is a continued journey of series points to try to make that semifinals, which eventually leads to the grand finals at the end of the day. And this being the first chance that these teams will have to perform, you really have to set the tone and the pace in this game right here. You cannot go down early because then you start to have those doubts. You start to get the negative thoughts, and then your game gets a landslide downward from there. So it's all about confidence. That's going to be the key.
Look, confidence is key, but what I do like about this mode on the contrary is instead of being a set lobby, if you end up going down right off rip, right off the spawn, you do have to not wait as long as you would in a set lobby. So what I'm basically saying is, you know, there is 5 lobbies going on at the same time. You get elimed off spawn, and then you can go basically right into another match, so you don't kind of have to wait for a good amount of minutes and lose kind of that momentum from the start. But at the same time, it does affect you mentally, right? Mental is key in Fortnite competitive, and making sure you can just refresh those bad games to get right into the next one is crucial to coming out on top. But for a lot of the duos here that we're seeing in this first match, not a lot of contestations, but I might be speaking too soon as we get right into Snooty here, where we do have one of the most popular POIs, and the action is getting started quickly.
Yeah, it looks like Nitrox was able to get that first down, easily clean that one up. There's 3 teams towards Snooty Steps for now, or let's just say 2.5. And on the other side, Cade and his duo kind of have that medallion and that mythic hammer pump to themselves if they can finish it quick enough. But the thing is, you don't necessarily know when players are rotating over due to the NPCs, due to the audio visuals. It does get a little confusing, but you have the opportunity with so many teams towards the outskirts biting for their own time. And you see in the minimap, medallion goes down, so that's going to be a quick amount of loot being gathered on that side of the map. And since there's nobody pushing it, they have a lot of flexibility to where they want to continue to loot up or simply rotate the zone.
Flexibility, but also danger. I mean, having that mythic hammer pump shotgun from the Peter Griffin NPC, it just makes it that much more popular. But switching over back, Savage Mongrel, uncontested, nice free. I mean, you can even look bottom right at the minimap. I don't see a single duo close to them. They looted up really quickly. You know they have their loot path planned out, practiced, and maximized in terms of efficiency. So they're going right on to continue their rotations through.
That's the thing, though, about landing where they're at. They do get a lot of comfortability and flexibility, just like Marius and Sanglid here, is they get a good amount of loot on those split POI drops away from the actual medallion. And since players are fighting for Fancy Fields, they are fighting for Snooty Steps, they have a lot of time before those teams even rotate in their position. So they have a ton of priority in terms of their next rotate.
All about planning ahead. Taking a look, though, Chris.
You guys,
Fencing Fields, another incredibly popular POI, and it's Merstash, actually, who's going to be the one going down. Game 1, will Malibuka
guys, I'm watching on YouTube.
Gets taken out as well. One of our Titan duos eliminated
on YouTube for
off the start.
FCN.
Good news,
The
10
future
matches,
will
Jacob.
stream
We've said
that
it already
also
to
on
be played
TikTok,
out.
so you can see what
So
I see.
hopefully
But I
they can
still
get
need
right
to
back
get
into it quickly
some
and
stuff.
not let that affect them.
Get that
Yeah, and if you kind of look at their last week performance, they definitely have something they can hang their hat on in terms of not having to worry too much about falling down that series points leaderboard. But one fight to the next, we saw them. It looked like it was smooth sailing for the early game, but Mr. Savage is going to be down, which puts a lot of pressure on the Mongrel soldiers here, especially with another team coming in and a little bit of a mishap. He tries to toss Savage body right at him, say, here, if you want him, you can have him, let me live. But he goes down. But that second team, the third party coming in, Myra and Kingos, they're just trying to take away that loot. And as soon as they found what they wanted in that Flowberry Fizz, they immediately disengage. And with the lobby having a lot of action early on, the first couple of Storm Surges might not be as prevalent as they were last week.
Might not be, especially in this first game. I mean, it was looking so bright for Mr. Savage Mongrel,
I'm going to close this one.
The shadows creeped in.
It's not working.
I don't know what
Thanks
went
for
wrong.
watching. Thanks for the hearts again.
Merstash, Malibuka,
Almost
Savage
900
Mongrel, a lot of
hearts,
Titan
so
duos
very
going
much.
down here quickly. For Cherry and
Catch you later.
Giros, though, once
It's
again,
going to get me cards. So
with
okay.
3 eliminations
Stream on
actually
3 platforms.
to their name so early on.
Bye.
This could be huge for them. Already good on materials, good on loot. All they have to do really is play semi-passively here, if it's what they're looking to do. Edge of the map on congested side. They basically have it set in stone.
And so many options. They have that yacht towards their south where they can launch pad, and a high mountain with a static launch pad towards their north. So I feel like they're not necessarily going to be in a rush to rotate, but a team that might be in a little bit of a hurry is Nathan and CZB. You see them all the way on the eastern edge where the zone is pulling towards the west. This is towards Grand Glacier. Again, there is some static launch pads to help with mobility, but as every other team beats you to the punch, getting to the actual EVS zone is where they're going to find difficulty.
Looking back over, bit more action here. Diox is the one being the aggressor, taking some shots at the wall, but nothing too serious yet. You said it yourself, first match with all the fights that have broken out. Surge might not be too much of a priority, but I'm thinking it could be. Diox, though, making use of that Peter Griffin mythic pump. You know he can hit hard if he's able to connect that initial shot. And it looks like they might just want to take a full-on engagement here almost. They're just looking for that option, that opportunity, that opening. But their opponents have so many builds around them. They're playing so passive. Without that initial advantage, it might just not be worth it.
The thought process, I like the thought process out of that. And they were trying to be very, very calculated in their play, but Zara and Radion just trying to bull rush into a 2v1. Maze is just trying to get out all by himself momentarily, trying to alleviate the pressure for Driz. Finally getting to the box. That Thunderburst SMG is just dealing so much damage in the blink of an eye, even going right through the builds. And I think Mesa has done enough to alleviate some of that pressure. Now both teams have one person that's weak, needing a heal. Zara's trying to keep the pressure up and not let anything go on over for free. Medkit's already going to be popped. Piece control going over. Zara's just trying to minimize the opportunity that they're giving on over to the teammates, but it's just not happening quick enough. Everybody here is going to be able to heal up, and since they're center zone, they have so much time to do what they want to do here.
Damage has been dealt, but they're not done yet. Radion now getting closer and closer. He gets cracked. The aggression comes through. Will it knock as well? Not yet, as it looks like. Oh, he did get knocked. Actually, 2v1 now. Player advantage for Mesa and Driz. 6 floppers as well to their name. Question is, do they continue the aggression now? Do they chase Zara, or do they heal up and play it slow, happy that they came out on top in the engagement?
Yeah, I feel like for them right now, it does look like they're deciding to take it slow, take it steady, one fight at a time, one foot in front of the next. After they finish that one, they're going to go and let Zara go ahead and escape. And you see not too far away is another team in the distance. So you have to be very, very careful and pick wisely where you're going to rotate to, because everything can come crashing down in a moment's notice. As we jump on board Vanyak and Sined, they built themselves a huge monument in the sky. A lot of safety with those cones. They're just trying to go for Surge. But the interesting thing is he has that Thunderburst SMG, so Surge is going to be something that is going to be the most easiest thing for this duo to get from their current position.
It's like a piece of art in the sky right now. Reminded me of the old OG Fortnite days. Got those castles built up. Meanwhile, Blacha, Yako in a bush. You know, Blaha getting ready. But it looks like there are no opponents close by. Once again, just looking for those options, looking for those opportunities, staying elevated, most importantly, to have the most vision possible on their surroundings for those opponents rotating through, as they've should have finished up looting by now and started their rotations. But with 0 eliminations, they're looking pretty hungry to find a bit of tags.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, I feel like not everybody is really concerned with Surge right now because of how active the lobby is. Only 66 players alive, 35 teams. But there's going to come a point in time, if it's not necessarily a focal point, Storm Surge will turn on. And if you haven't made it a part of your plan, even though it hasn't been a focus here, that's going to put you in an interesting situation because you might not necessarily have prepared for it. So a lot of these teams that are kind of in the slower side, in the outskirts, middle zone by themselves without much surge to their name, those are the ones that are going to have to fight for it and make those risky plays later on. But for Raxi and Darm, they're just kind of smooth sailing, getting to zone. They started on the far east, so they've had a journey just to get up into this point. And as soon as they get into zone, I think that's where they're going to start to gather information, figure out where every player is positioned at, and then kind of go from there.
Lazen making use of that Flowberry crash pad rotation. I love that rotation. Looks so fun. As now, actually, The aggression as well. Looks like it's going to come through if they've cracked an opponent. Be careful, though. A lot of duos in the surrounding area. Have to be cautious here as danger levels are high. If you want these eliminations, you got to be quick with it. There is that cash. There is that extra loot. Atrax doesn't want to give it up so easily, but with the pressure, with the danger, the surrounding duos, they've decided we're going to have to give it up.
Niemand
Yeah.
kijken, man.
There's going to be a couple
Hey,
caches
je
littered
bent
around this
gewoon op
outskirts
TikTok
with a lot
Dingo
of
hip.
teams kind of rotate in.
Dus ik heb een paar
Reason
fans
G,
die
they're gonna be
natuurlijk
able
wel
to kinda
direct.
push a couple teams
Dus er is
away.
direct
You
wel
see Lead
hartjes
and
en
Nano
comments en
sneaking
al door
by.
die boos
And I feel like he knows
binnengekomen.
somebody's
Dus
there. He just
nee.
may
Ik heb
not
op mijn
know
eerste
exactly
pas
where they're
die
positioned, but I
toen
think
ze
you might
eruit
have
laat
saw
met een
a
melding
little bit
krijgen
of the
komen
leg,
kijken
maybe the
en doen.
hip
En,
sticking out. So that's
dus
that's
pik wel op,
crucial
maar moet echt
information
nog alle
when he
kanalen
needs it most. But
samen
sorry, you
streamen
see
en
him
kunnen
getting
sharen, want
chased
al weg.
around the map by
Kijken met
Meza
zijn
and Driz.
Dat is die gewoon
For
weg.
them, they think this is not only crucial surge, but points for
Yeah.
their total, depending on where they're at in the
Baskin
leaderboard.
and
They want to have a
StreamYard.
big first game and start to build that confidence. But Zara, if he's able to get out alive, you can see he has the
Noob,
mythic
yes,
frenzy auto shotgun. You got to imagine he has the medallion as well.
okay.
Shields are being
Kijk,
healed.
maar
Driz just oversteps by himself. Meza goes in to save the day, and that's going to be a huge success and a huge sigh of relief.
That was a continuation of that engagement we saw earlier on. Was Zara lost his duo partner, but now came back. But for how long? Didn't make it too far. Raxi, Darm, edge of zone, rotating in. There is a duo holding them. Train coming through. Are you jumping on that train, Jacob? I'm not personally, but
two peas in a pod. We're thinking the same. I'm jumping on the train because my thought process is right. It's not necessarily a smart move, admittedly so, especially this late in the game. It's not a smart move. But who's going to expect someone to be on the train if it's not a smart move? So I think that's why I'm going to risk it, and that's probably why I'm going down as soon as the train gets in zone.
look, thinking ahead. 5-head plays there. Giga Brain, I like it. Cade now. Diox once again. You know they love action. No elims for their name yet, but with the aggression we're seeing, I wouldn't be surprised if they get some shortly. You can look how compact, though, their current location is in terms of players. Everybody close together. It's third-party heaven right now, as now he continues looking around, finding those openings, but I don't know if it's the play to play aggressive here, especially not being in zone already.
Yeah, almost a quarter of the lobby left alive is on that side of the map. I counted about 7 teams, 14 individual players just stacked on one side. That's going to make the rotation tough if you don't have any mobility in terms of the grapple blade or the Flowberry Fizz, Flowberry combination with, you know, a number of things, including the crash pad that we've already seen today alone. Sky Jump, hopefully he has his duos card. You see him going towards the backside of the zone. Hopefully trying to get him back, but only time will tell. It's either that or going to the slow side of the zone to where he's hoping the least amount of teams will be at, which will kind of give him an easier road as a solo.
It's difficult. Let's see how he ended up as a solo, though. Lost his duo partner here quickly. Went in for the engagement, though, and was able to clean it up.
Hey,
but
someone and guy.
even if you clean it up, losing a teammate, it doesn't
Love
make
your
it worth
name.
it.
Love your
Having to
name.
clutch it before even
Welcome
being
in
in
the
moving
stream.
zones. So many placement points to be earned along the way as Yapko and Blaha continue with their little bush strategies. They're actually split between 2 different bushes here around the train tracks, continuing to hunt for opportunities. They do have that Reaper sniper
Let me know
rifle
in the
in
comment.
hand.
Do you play build?
Incredibly
No build?
dangerous.
Just one. I do play no build.
For the opponents in the surrounding area.
I'm 53 and I'm watching those kids
But so far,
building like.
I was kind of hoping they bought a ticket to go ride the train, but it's
Yeah,
going the
yeah,
opposite
yeah,
direction
yeah.
towards the
Yeah,
outside
that's
of the zone.
that's the
See a
live
couple
stream
teams
now.
gonna
That's
meet
that's
that one.
actually happening right now.
H3OJ and
So
Sean
that's
just trying to
the
hold people back
competition,
towards the
the
outside of the
Europe
zone, but they're not in the zone
third
themselves. Sean actually
Major
goes
2
down.
Europe.
That puts his teammate in such a tough spot. That's Nano and Guide, who are just slowly but surely third-partying and just hiding behind so many other teams instead of going
Some
for these simple
already on the
elimination.
second.
They're just trying to get ahead and go to zone. He does not have HP to regain at this point in time, but ahead of him is both Cade and Diox. You know what loot they have on them, so this is
Can
going to
you
be
hear the
hard for Guide to
commentators?
survive. You see the pressure coming in from multiple different angles, including other teams as
Just
well.
attack
They want
in
to
the
try to
chat,
steal away this
appreciate it.
elimination. A lot of builds are being expended for Guide, so even if he finds a way to survive this, I'm not sure what he'll have left on him. And they even changed targets to go after Nano, who might go down to the zone here if he just takes a little bit too long, because he's getting pushed further and further into that direction.
H30 though, straight on in, knocking Nano. Meanwhile, you have the starving duo of Diox and Cade right below. They're hungry for those eliminations. You know they want it, as now they continue their aggression, pushing through. All it takes is one big shot. The players from afar taking those shots, and there it is, Cade finishing up the engagement. 3 eliminations now from 0 to 3 real quick. But they have just 10 seconds until Storm starts closing. Long distance to go. Hopefully, they have those grapple blades.
I'm not sure. Not
with
this
the
one,
rotate.
actually.
But meanwhile, we move
this
back
is
to
on
another duo.
Fortnite, so
Cherry
I'm not,
Giras inside.
that's why I'm streaming it
once
on
again,
YouTube. So
a
I'm not
push.
sure if
Yeah,
Fortnite
just
is
seeing
streaming
a
it
few
straight
seconds
on,
of that
YouTube.
mini map there. You see the zone is pulling all the way towards the northwest. So a lot of these teams that are already positioned here, they've done a good job to secure their spot. For a lot of those teams that are still on the southeastern side of the zone, it might get tougher and tougher to rotate on over if the zone continues in this trend. Got to be able to plan for that in the future. You got Darky and Darkest just trying to spread themselves out. They've been focusing multiple teams here in the lobby. Thankfully, they've done enough to slow it down, because if the lobby would have kept going, that would have forced them to expend a ton of mats and resources in the current position, to where that's not what you want to happen. And if you look at the bottom right hand of your screen right now, Takata, there are so many teams rotating in this direction. This is so stacked compared to what we saw literally moments ago watching the northwest side of the zone.
Looking in the first qualifier last week,
Thanks, nice.
it was
Appreciate
cold, it was chilly up in the hills around the snowy area, but now,
You play
on
builds
the
or no
contrary,
builds?
in the forest, I'm liking this environment. It's different, it's refreshing, and we'll have to see how the players make use of it. A lot
And
more
I'm planning
bushes here,
to
a lot more
stream
opportunities to be a bit sneaky. So you do have to be
mainly
careful
the
as you're
European
rotating through.
sessions,
And with players like CZB, 23 bullets
because I'm Europe-based.
with a Reaper Sniper in hand, you have to be careful when you're rotating.
Yeah, especially this one. I thought the last one was worse for a lot of those South teams. Now it's just going to get worse for everybody else, to where this side of the zone
And
wasn't
sometimes
necessarily
public lobbies
congested
would
as it
think,
once
oh,
was,
still
but
a
as
lot of
everybody has to
teams in
go
it,
on
but
over, they're going to
what's
find their
that?
spot
See
here.
that, how many
And as
people
soon
are there?
as zone begins to open up, you can see it's a 50-50 for now. That will give a lot of space for teams to try to go where nobody currently is positioned, but it does come at a risk, especially if you're currently positioned in a great spot. So for now, it's going to be a little bit of that waiting game until Storm Surge starts to force a lot of that action. You see, finally it turns on. I ask, I get. Vaniac and Sined are going to be 45 above the damage threshold, which, Takata, you know as well as I do. It's something, but it's not enough to where now they're worried about it, and that's why you see them looking around.
Not close to enough, as they have to be careful, though, with sniper rifles being so dominant, especially in these situations where you just want a few tags for Surge. You could just open up that peak, and it could be the end if you end up getting headshot sniped. As now, we look at the shots come through, players now hunting, getting a bit scared. They know what has to be done. You can see the west, even southwest side of the zone, full of duos right now, playing purposely here, possibly in the congested side to get that damage done, but be careful. Grapple blade opening up opportunities for the opponents to take shots. Luckily enough, they've made it in. Duo already has a base. Gonna have a bit of time to recuperate all that shield and HP that was lost.
Yeah, I'd say it looked like a little bit of a blessing and a curse there. They took a lot of damage, like you said, but at least they got themselves back-to-back spots in zone to where they can take this moment to figure out what their next game plan and strategy is going to be in terms of holding on to your spot. But if you look, there's so many more teams, probably more than half the lobby, having to run edge to find themselves a spot. Sanity and Zardo, they're going to be kind of late rotating behind a lot of these teams, but instead of going straight towards the right, they're just trying to white line it in and go directly to where not a lot of teams are currently at, but they're beating them to the punch. The longer you take, the harder it's going to be.
It's going to be an incredibly difficult rotate no matter what. You can see how many duos are already based up alongside the borderline of this 7th zone here, meaning all these duos that have to rotate a bit late now have that danger of not only the duos in Storm shooting back at them, but also their competitors around them rotating in at the same time. You can see Zardo even looking around to see how the opportunities, the options are looking, but making good use of the environment here. using the hills, the trees to block the line of sight from their opponents that are already based up, and it might have just given them a very free rotate.
Yeah, they're even looping around to try to take the top of that left-hand side. So the biggest worry when they get there is going to be Storm Surge and how they're going to get the damage needed. Vanyak and Sined, 41 above, still having a little bit of comfortability, but not too much as he looks on into the distance. Peeks a couple shots through. That's going to help his total, but he gets aggressed on from the bottom, and that's why you think the awareness from this duo is at an all-time high. They quickly react to a possible bull rush from that player, and now they're trying to go on the offensive. They don't want to look weak, and you see them going ahead and stretching themselves out, putting pressure out, and I think they're doing a good job because now they're even adding their Storm Surge total.
Zone now popped up north. All these duos now planning the rotation. Meanwhile, it looks like the ones that were already there early, the ones that rotated in late, have a lot of trouble getting focused by the lobby as Sined and Vanyak are on the calmer side here, being the aggressors, taking those shots. As this is an interesting zone, bridge causes that huge change in elevation. If the zone pulls back south, even southeast after, we could have some interesting rotates, but it's going to be Blaha and Yapko. We're going to get ahead early here. Box themselves in. They have to be careful, though.
This is just one of those zones where if you're not prepared properly for the drastic pulls, no matter which direction it goes, towards the east, open water, towards the north, different elevations plus water, and then the south in which you were talking about combined with the west, the different elevations again. So refreshes are going to be so impactful here once we get a little bit later on in this game. But Blaha and Yapko, they're just kind of smooth sailing. You saw them go from bush to the position where they're in now. They don't want to take too many fights. Storm Surge isn't a worry. It's about making it to the zone. Eliminations will naturally present themselves as long as they keep themselves alive.
Running low on ammunition as well. 55 medium shots. You got to be careful here, knowing when to conserve, especially if you need that damage done. 3 elims to their name so far. So they should be looking a bit better. We saw them just on the borderline as the zone was starting off. As Vanyak now might be making some calls as they continue to look up. This zone is insane. They have to cross all the water onto an island, remote island zone right now. This is going to be interesting.
They're either going to expend a lot of builds, or hopefully they brought their water rings along the way to swim across the waters. You even see the medallions getting passed behind on that low ground. Sined looking toward the backside, try to see if anybody's staggering with those med kits. A good amount of damage being dished out, and needed damage at that. They're 67 below the damage threshold. Myra gets taken down along the way. That's a good amount of damage, but still not enough to push them over. Lays and locks towards the low ground. They're below the damage threshold as well and continuously falling, but this is a good position to go ahead and pop those shots on players that are going towards the front side of the zone, and they did just enough to get above the threshold.
Just above by 4. 39 players still up, 22 duos. Looks like Vanyak and his duo still holding the clouds. Meanwhile, Darky with 3 elims, but for how long is it Sined now? Still maintaining up above, taking those shots as he's being contested. This could be a huge zone to maintain, as most likely it goes north again, pulling even further, causing the use of even more materials now for these duos rotating down below. Cherry, Giraz, 4 total elims. Nathan going in for that aggression, full stacked up on materials though. They have options.
They have 2 eliminations so far, only 118 above the damage threshold, but shots like that is going to give them even more damage to count on. Finding another elimination onto Locks, picking up the Siphon. That's a huge amount of materials that they're able to get from that refresh and keep themselves alive, but CZB goes down along the way. The aggression for Blaha and Yapko's there. They're able to get it down onto Clarky, but there's so much chaos going around. A couple of missed edits. They're able to break through, but it came at a cost. 40 damage done to Yapko due to the Zorn.
Dropping down lower. Chaos fueling this duo as now the zone pulls east. Remote island engagements coming through. Cherry, Giraz, 4 elims on the board, 41 builds to work with. Flowberry is popped. Enhanced mobility comes through. Boxed up close to opponents. They have to be careful here. Meanwhile, Darky inside of a box, continuing his rotate along the edge of Storm, maintaining safety while conserving materials.
Yeah, teamwork making the dream work. You saw Darkus in the tough spot. Darky there to go ahead and chop down that build and give him a little bit of safety. Traveling towards the right, they're going to try to get ahead of everybody else. Raxian and Darm, they're trying to go through the lobby. Take it by force. That's going to be the key here. And as soon as they do, they switch layers. They're trying to continuously look back on some of these teams and keep their mat count high. And I think with 600 builds, they got to be some of the most healthiest in the lobby. A turn and burn from Yapko, able to take down Driz. And those refresh mats, that saves his life there and keeps him going forward.
Talk about healthiest. Yapko looking like one of the unhealthiest in terms of materials. Only 4 builds to work with. Zero's now as well at 6 alongside Cherry. They have to find something, and they look for it here. Drop down. Engagement comes through. They knock 1. Get a refresh of materials here. 241 now to work with. Kantar run ahead, stay ahead of their opponents. Sinet and Vanyak maintain the height throughout this whole endgame. As Blaha now looks like he's going to go down to Storm, but he did secure a quick elim.
Yeah, the final zone is really forcing a lot of people's into interesting positions, and because of how drastic these pulls were, a lot of the mats have been expended from everybody left in the lobby. Chari's going to find the med kit and an elimination onto Prime as continues to look back and back to back. Chari takes down Darkus as well. That whole duo is gone, but he goes a little bit ahead of himself. Raxi's going to be able to take him down. Top 3 situation. Sinet and Vanyak finally drop down. Here is trying to heal off to the backside of zone. Vanyak does not want to let it go through. With a few seconds left, lands 1 shot, stops the med kit, which gets a huge advantage on over to Sinet, who has 4 med kits to use. He drops, gets a little bit closer just in case push comes to shove. A 1v1 situation for heal off Sinet. 4 med kits left, make it 3 as 1 goes out. He's trying to go in for the final elimination, secures it with ease, even with 3 med kits left.
Yeah, coming out on top in their first match with confidence, had 3 medkits in the inventory. He said, no, I don't want to use these medkits. I want an extra elimination. Dropped straight down, played for that aggression, secured the elimination alongside that victory.
Yeah, and the way they were just able to hold high ground from 8th zone onward, it seemed like they had no problems because of these zones going up and down elevations through waters. Nobody was really able to look up and challenge them, and from there, they had it in the books. 5 different med kits, didn't even need them all. Sinet and Vanyak win game 1, but with so much action left to unfold, Adam, Mini, Levin, let's break down that game.
Yeah, let's break it all down. There's Sinet and Vanyak there with the opening victory royale of the day here. I believe 7 eliminations as well here, which is great. Was tallying up scores already there, but preparing Mini superbly there. Med kits finishing off at height. I mean, just having the height, capitalized on that and get the first victory. Amazing.
Yeah, we saw them playing height last week in one of their games, and they just kept getting shot down every single time. Me and Levin spoke about it here on the desk, and we were like, they need to improve that. They need to develop that. They need to look at that and think, right, we don't want to let that happen again. And as it happens here, Levin, they've not let it happen again. They built up onto height. They were playing very high layers for a moment there as well. So I think they've learned from their mistakes, but without too much pressure, you could say.
Yeah, I think when you look at that game, this is clearly a team that has been on a roll this season. They are on form. Week after week, we watch them play and we go, okay, maybe these guys are a serious contender, and I think they're starting out the day with a bang. I love the way this game ended, right? Vanyak got knocked. He said, look, the guy is here. If you want to find him, well, I know you got your 3 med kits, but if you want to find him and end the game, he's right there. And I think the big thing here is if they can continue this confidence, if they can continue this run of form, they're going to be definitely in the upper bracket, but in great form going into grand finals.
Yeah, absolutely right there. Let's see if they can continue it. Yapko and Blaha as well here. We saw that the boys, Jacob and Takata, featuring talk about those guys a lot during the cast in the last game. I mean, Levin as well, another team which we talked about so much in the past here, already starting to kind of make moves, get points, which we know early doors is so pivotal in this competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's 2 players there that are very underrated in the scene in terms of just, you're looking at that next level underneath the most elite of the elite players. And Yapko, again, a player that's had big results. He's won one of the biggest lands of the year last year at a game as 8 with Cammy. Blaha, one of the best up-and-coming players, a player that sort of last year showed everyone, look, I'm not up-and-coming anymore. I am an elite player in this region. Respect me. And no surprises that the 2 of them together are performing well. I think the big thing is in situations like this, in the chaos of the endgame, in the final moments, you might not associate these guys as being big fraggers, but they have that ability to hit the key shots. They have that clutch gene. Maybe it's a thing with the Polish. I don't know what it is, but they all seem to have that ice-cold moment hidden in them.
It seems like that's what they do best. I just don't know what it is. They're just always so calm, particularly with their experience, right? We talk so much about this duo, and particularly Blatcher himself. Just being an up-and-coming player, as you mentioned there, Levin, someone that is just on the come-up, but now it's time, you know? It's time to actually perform at the top of the level of Fortnite, and we're seeing it right here. It's a duo that I'm particularly excited about this season. I'm excited to see how they develop going into the grand finals. Of course, both Polish, both know each other very well, both at the top of their game at the moment. As we saw in that end game, they know what they can do when it comes down to those sort of mid-ground, low-ground frags. I think that's really key to show us a successful duo. If you can perform in those areas and not worry too much about how the other person's doing, just have to trust in your teammate that they're going to be okay, they're going to be able to get back together with you. That's going to be crucial. And I think a lot of those moments right there in that end game definitely answered a few of my questions about this duo, about whether they can stack up to the best in these sort of high situation or high pressure situations in those mid-ground layers.
Absolutely right. Yeah, and as a half Polish person that I am, I can totally say I am ruthless. I am ice cold. I have it in my veins. 100% confirmed. It's a thing. Right, we got loads more action. As we said, every single week, every single kind of session we see here on FNCS is just fast. It doesn't stop. The action is hot, and we're going to dive back into it here. We're going to join a lobby right now. Noah Riley is in there, and many more players desperate for those points as well. We rejoin Takata and Jacob. Let's get stuck back in, lads. Here we go.
Games. We want games, and that's exactly what we're going to give you. And we're going to jump on board, just like Adam said, Noah Riley and Aqua. This is going to be a good chance for them to kind of make up for last week. Wasn't necessarily the best showing that we know both of these players are capable of. And as we tune in, they're just traveling through fencing fields. Neither one seemed to have the medallion, so they're just trying to make this rotation on over. Last game, we did have a Western zone, and this time it looks like we're going across the way to the east side of the map.
Look, the performance in qualifier 1 is just going to give them that motivation that they need, Jacob, to make something happen here. In the second qualifier, other big name in the lobby, Snazy Podasai, in a calm situation, not being contested here. Actually, they were contested. 2 elims already picked up. They just cleaned it up like breakfast. Is now Griffin looking to get a quick piece of that pie. And with that quick knock, now 2 versus 1. The advantage has been given to this duo.